It seems like Donald Trump and his despicable regime's weaponized DOJ was caught engaging in potential grand jury misconduct. Yet again, it seems like they may have been caught red-handed.
So MeidasTouch just exposed what looks like massive prosecutorial misconduct by Trump's DOJ against the Southern Poverty Law Center. We're talking about potential grand jury lies, weaponized prosecutions, and the SPLC demanding secret testimony be disclosed. This could unravel one of Trump's most politically motivated cases.
And their allegation was very strange that the Southern Poverty Law Center pays confidential informants in order to stoke racial division and they pay the KKK to promote racism. And then they take in money, apparently, they say, which is framed as a wire fraud criminal charge based on the racism that they create. Then they fundraise off it, and then they don't disclose that they're the racist ones to their donors. So thus it's wire fraud. And the Southern Poverty Law Center is the KKK enablers, and they're the racists. And so they should be criminally prosecuted. Just when you hear that, you go, I really doesn't make much sense.
The SPLC has spent 50 years dismantling the KKK through undercover work and litigation. They literally wrote the playbook on infiltrating white supremacist groups. Claiming they fund the KKK is like accusing firefighters of arson. It's the exact opposite of their documented mission.
The Trump DOJ lies about everything. We're going to hear from the Southern Poverty Law Center soon, and I'm sure everything the Trump regime is saying is false. But I don't know what to report on yet because it's unusual to have a DOJ bring such deranged and despicable cases in the first place if these allegations are false. So
this is exactly the right journalistic approach. Trump's DOJ has a documented history of political prosecutions, from targeting journalists to weaponizing grand juries. Remember the fake cases against McCabe and Strzok that collapsed? Same playbook, different target.
And what they just filed was a motion to disclose the transcripts of grand jury proceedings. And they say everything the Trump regime said is 100% false. As I'm sure you know by watching MeidasTouch and Legal AF and Talking Feds and all the legal shows that we work and partner with, it's unusual that grand jury testimony is made public.
Requesting grand jury transcripts is nuclear. It only happens when prosecutors have committed serious misconduct. Federal Rule 6 makes grand jury secrecy almost absolute. The SPLC is essentially accusing the DOJ of lying to grand jurors to get an indictment.
There's a federal rule of criminal procedure 6, specifically 6E, which codifies and cements grand jury secrecy, but in very rare circumstances where you can make a showing of grand jury misconduct or that the prosecutors were lying to the grand jury or induced an indictment through schemes and artifices, you can potentially get the grand jury testimony. It's so rare that there's not a lot of examples to even talk about, except in the Trump regime, ironically, because Trump just brought a second indictment against James Comey. James Comey was someone who during the first indictment was able to get the grand jury testimony. And one of the things that you were able to see is that the Trump regime lied all the time to the grand jury.
Rule 6 has been broken successfully maybe a handful of times in modern history. The Comey precedent is crucial here. His team proved Trump's prosecutors systematically lied to grand juries. That's now the template for exposing DOJ misconduct.
Well, when the Trump regime's out there making stupid social media posts and dumb press conferences and running their mouth and saying certain things, it undermines the case and creates that showing. So that's precisely what the Southern Poverty Law Center, has said. And they said at the most basic level, they said this criminal case seems to be based on the idea that we have informants and like don't notify the police, and like we've kept it secret in order to like promote the racists to then justify our existence. But we tell the Alabama police about all this. Like, where do you think they've learned about it from? We help with informants to then work with the police department to get the bad guys.
This destroys the entire case theory. If the SPLC was running some secret scheme to fund racism, why would they simultaneously be briefing Alabama law enforcement on their intelligence? You can't be both criminal conspirators and active police informants.
So why would we be engaging in crimes while telling the police that we are doing the informant work and helping state police officers? So you didn't address that point, but let me get into this court filing in a little more detail.
Exactly. The DOJ's theory requires the SPLC to be simultaneously hiding their activities while openly reporting them to the same FBI office now prosecuting them. That's not criminal behavior. That's a prosecutorial fantasy disconnected from basic logic.
In addition to the false claims about Charlottesville, administration officials have made repeated false and highly prejudicial statements about the SPLC and its activities, including the fanciful and baseless claim that the SPLC is giving money to the KKK, an allegation not even supported by or contained in the indictment itself. They accuse Kash Patel of naked partisanship in a Patel Fox News appearance. And let me just read a little bit for you so you can see the actual motion. For over half a century, the Southern Poverty Law Center has served as a cornerstone of American civil rights litigation. This indictment represents a stunning and unremitting departure from Justice Department policy and established law. It seeks to criminalize some of the very investigative tools and programs that the SPLC has used for decades to infiltrate and dismantle violent extremist organizations like the Ku Klux Klan and the Aryan Nations.
Kash Patel and other officials making unsupported public claims about an active case violates basic DOJ protocols. When prosecutors start doing Fox News hits, claiming things not in their own indictment, that's evidence of political motivation, not legal merit.
Comments made by administration officials and flaws in the indictment itself suggest the case results from misleading both the public and the grand jury that voted on the charges. Moreover, on its face, the indictment suffers from obvious legal infirmities, including the omission of essential elements of intent and a failure to reconcile the charges with recent Supreme Court precedent. And it says in the footnote, these and other deficiencies in the 11-count indictment will be the subject of a forthcoming motion to dismiss the charges. These particularized irregularities suggest the grand jury was not merely misled by the government's presentation of the law, but likely it was actively weaponized to facilitate such charges.
Claiming a grand jury was weaponized is explosive legal language. Omitting essential elements means prosecutors didn't prove required components like criminal intent. They're essentially saying DOJ manipulated grand jurors into approving a legally deficient indictment.
The SPLC used the informant program to gather voluminous and detailed information about the risk of violence at Charlottesville. The information was memorialized and provided to law enforcement, including to the FBI's Mobile, Alabama office, the very office leading the investigation of this case. That document warned the FBI of the specific individuals likely to attend the rally. In addition to the false claims about Charlottesville, administration officials have made repeated false and highly presidential statements that the Southern Poverty Law Center and its activities, including the fanciful and baseless claim that the SPLC is giving money to the KKK, an allegation not even supported or contained in the indictment itself.
The irony is staggering. The same FBI mobile office that received detailed SPLC intelligence about Charlottesville violence is now prosecuting them for providing that intelligence. They're literally being charged for the cooperation that prevented worse violence.
And in a naked display of politicization and partisanship, Trump posted, Southern law, whatever it is, has given money to the KKK. They're supposed to protect people. The president reiterated in another post that it's part of a Democratic hoax. These repeated false and prejudicial remarks by the administration's most senior officials not only violate Justice Department norms and long-held principles of federal prosecution, but they illustrate, among other things, the stunning and blatant irregularity, politicization, and manifest risk of conduct.
Trump's Truth Social posts claiming the SPLC funds the KKK become evidence of political interference. When the president publicly prejudices an active case with claims his own prosecutors can't support in court, that demonstrates corrupt intent.
What kind of criminal intent would you have when you're literally working with the FBI and the prosecutors from the office who are now prosecuting you? And people may go, come on, the Trump regime can't be that dumb. They don't care about anything. They got their headline, Harry.
So, yeah, that's it. It's not whether they're dumb or not. It's whether they can have a quick political hit and dirty them up. But look, I do think the transcript will show all kinds of failings.
Trump's strategy is headlines over justice. File dramatic charges, let right-wing media run wild with accusations, then let the cases collapse quietly later. The damage to civil rights organizations is done regardless of legal outcomes.
And it's like, yeah, at the most basic level, why would they be saying they worked with the FBI and the local law enforcement and the attorney in the United States Attorney's Office in a public court filing if they didn't? Why would they say they did? And if they did that, which I have no reason to doubt that they would, and then lie in a federal paper and invite other criminal charges, if they were trying to hide some criminal scheme, why would you go and work with the FBI? All of these, the most basic level.
Organizations don't lie about FBI cooperation in federal court filings. That's instant perjury charges and disbarment for their lawyers. The SPLC's documented cooperation with law enforcement is probably the strongest evidence that this prosecution is pure politics.
Well, the bank robber goes, listen, FBI, I'm robbing the bank. We're in this together, okay? Here's what we're going to do. Come on. It just doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. It's just, let's use common sense here, folks.
The bank robber analogy perfectly captures the absurdity. Political prosecutions create these logical impossibilities because they start with the desired target, then reverse engineer charges. Real crimes follow evidence. Political cases follow narratives.